Park Ji-ho walked into the medical bay with his hands in his pockets, whistling a tune he'd heard earlier that morning. The medical bay on Station Harmony 7 was enormous, filled with equipment that looked more like modern art than medical devices. Everything was chrome and blue light, designed to accommodate the dozens of alien species that worked on the station. He didn't particularly want to be here, but regulations were regulations. Every human on the station had to complete a full medical examination every 6 months. It was his turn. A tall figure approached him from across the room. Dr. Wellness was a Quillrathi, standing nearly 7 feet tall with a body that reminded Ji-ho of a praying mantis. Her forearms moved with precise grace, and her large compound eyes reflected the blue medical lights. A small translation device on her chest converted her clicking sounds into smooth, accented speech. "Corporal Park Ji-ho," she said, checking her data pad. "You are here for your 6-month evaluation." "That's me," Ji-ho replied with a friendly smile. "Should be quick, right?" "I feel fine." Dr. Wellness tilted her triangular head, a gesture Ji-ho had learned meant curiosity or mild concern. "We shall see. Please follow me to examination room 3. The examination room was smaller, more intimate. A scanning bed sat in the center, surrounded by floating screens and mechanical arms equipped with various sensors. Ji-ho had been through this before. Last time, the doctor had been amazed by his blood pressure and heart rate, saying they were impossibly high. He'd had to explain that this was normal for humans. "Please remove your uniform shirt and lie on the scanning bed," Dr. Wellness instructed. Ji-ho complied, pulling off his gray maintenance uniform shirt. The station was always kept at a comfortable temperature, so he didn't mind. He climbed onto the bed, which adjusted to his body shape with unsettling accuracy. "This will take approximately 10 minutes, Dr. Wellness said. "The scanner will examine your entire body structure, internal organs, and cellular health. Please remain still." "Got it," Ji-ho said, staring at the ceiling. The scanner hummed to life above him, a ring of light slowly moving down his body from head to toe. It tickled slightly, like static electricity dancing across his skin. Dr. Wellness stood at her console, watching the data flow across multiple screens. Ji-ho could see her mandibles moving slightly, which he'd learned was a sign of concentration. Everything seemed routine. Then the humming stopped. Dr. Wellness's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound Ji-ho had never heard before. Her forearms began moving across different screens, enlarging images, running calculations. Another Quillrathi entered the room, a younger male named Tak-mir who served as a junior physician. "Doctor," Ji-ho said, sitting up slightly. "Everything okay?" "Please remain still," Dr. Wellness said, but her tone had changed. There was something sharp in it now, something urgent. "Tak-mir, verify these results. I want a secondary scan immediately." The younger doctor approached the console, his eyes widening as he saw the display. He made a high-pitched whistle that the translator didn't bother to convert. "Is this accurate?" "This cannot be accurate. What's going on?" Ji-ho asked, genuine concern creeping into his voice now. Had they found something wrong? Some disease he didn't know he had? The scanner activated again, this time focusing on specific areas. It lingered on his chest, his arms, his legs. The process took another 15 minutes, during which Dr. Wellness and Tak-mir spoke in rapid Quillrathi, their translators struggling to keep up. Ji-ho caught words like impossible and catastrophic damage and emergency protocol. "Seriously, what's happening?" Ji-ho said, sitting up fully now. "You're kind of freaking me out here." Dr. Wellness turned to face him, all 4 of her arms held in what Ji-ho recognized as a gesture of extreme concern. "Corporal Park, I need you to be completely honest with me. Have you been in an accident? Multiple accidents? Have you experienced severe trauma during your time on this station?" Ji-ho blinked. "What? No, I mean, I bumped my shin on a cargo container last week, but that's about it. Why?" Dr. Wellness manipulated her console, and a large holographic image appeared in the air between them. It was Ji-ho's skeleton, rendered in perfect detail in glowing blue. Red highlights marked various points across the bone structure. "According to our scans," Dr. Wellness said slowly, "you have 17 distinct fractures across your skeletal system. Some appear recent, others are older. 3 of your ribs show fracture lines. Your left arm has 2 separate breaks. 4 of your spinal bones show compression damage. Your collarbone has been fractured. Both of your lower leg bones show stress fractures. 2 bones in your left hand are broken. Your right ankle has a crack. 3 of your toe bones show fractures. She paused, her mandibles quivering. Corporal Park in Quilrathi medicine, even a single fracture is a serious emergency that requires weeks of immobilization and treatment. 17 fractures would typically indicate near-fatal trauma, yet you walked in here today completely mobile, showing no signs of distress. Jiho looked at the holographic skeleton, studying the red marks she'd pointed out. Recognition dawned on his face, followed by a sheepish grin. "Oh," he said. "Oh, that." The way he said it so casually, so dismissively, made Dr. Velness's entire body stiffen. Takmir made a sound like a kettle whistling. "Oh, that?" Dr. Velness repeated, her translator adding an edge of disbelief to her voice. "Corporal Park, you are looking at catastrophic skeletal damage. This level of injury would kill most species. Those that survived would be permanently disabled. How are you standing? How are you walking? How are you working in station maintenance?" Jiho scratched the back of his head, suddenly feeling awkward. "Well, they're not exactly current injuries. Most of these happened years ago. They healed up fine." "Healed," Dr. Velness said flatly. "Healed." "Yeah," Jiho said. "I mean, the ribs were from sports. One from rugby back in university, the others from rock climbing. The collarbone was a motorcycle accident when I was 19. The spine thing is from lifting weights at the gym. The arm fractures are from when I fell off a ladder here on the station like 3 months ago. But that wasn't a big deal." Each explanation seemed to make things worse. Dr. Velness's mandibles had stopped moving entirely, which Jiho had learned meant shock or extreme distress. "Not a big deal," she repeated. "You fractured your arm 3 months ago and did not report it?" "It was just a hairline fracture," Jiho said defensively. "I took some painkillers and wrapped it up. Healed fine." Dr. Velness turned to Takmir. "Contact Station Commander Thelcross immediately. Initiate Emergency Medical Protocol 7. Contact Lieutenant Kang Bora and have her report to Medical Bay at once. This human has been working under dangerous conditions that have caused massive skeletal trauma, and we need to investigate immediately." "Wait. What?" Jiho said, standing up from the scanning bed. "No, you don't understand. This is normal. I'm fine." But Dr. Velness wasn't listening. She was already speaking rapidly into her communication device, calling for an emergency meeting. Takmir was pulling up files and medical protocols, his movements frantic. Jiho stood there in the examination room, shirtless and confused, staring at his own glowing skeleton floating in the air. All he'd done was show up for a routine medical check. How had this turned into an emergency? He had a feeling this was going to be a very long day. 30 minutes later, examination room 3 had become crowded. Jiho sat on the scanning bed, his shirt back on, facing what felt like a tribunal. Dr. Velness stood at her console, the holographic image of his skeleton still rotating slowly in the air. Takmir stood beside her, taking notes on a datapad. Station Commander Thelcross had arrived within minutes of the emergency call. He was a Thoraxian, a reptilian species with dark green scales and piercing yellow eyes. He wore the formal uniform of the Galactic Coalition, and his presence made the room feel even smaller. He stood with his arms crossed, studying Jiho with an expression that was hard to read. Lieutenant Kang Bora had come running from the engineering section, still wearing her maintenance coveralls. She was human, in her early 30s with short black hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She'd been Jiho's direct supervisor for the past 8 months, and right now she looked extremely confused. "Somebody want to explain why I got an emergency summons?" Bora asked, looking between the aliens and Jiho. "What happened?" Dr. Velness gestured to the holographic skeleton. "Lieutenant Kang, were you aware that Corporal Park has sustained 17 separate skeletal fractures?" Bora's eyes widened. She looked at Jiho, then at the skeleton, then back at Jiho. 17? When? How? "That is what we are trying to determine," Commander Thelcross said, his voice deep and measured. "Corporal Park, I need you to explain exactly what happened. Station Harmony 7 has maintained a perfect safety record for 3 years. Not a single serious injury has been reported in that time, yet you appear to have sustained catastrophic damage." Jiho held up his hands in a placating gesture. "Okay, everyone just calm down. It's not as bad as it looks." "Not as bad?" Dr. Velness's translator practically crackled with distress. "Corporal, you have more broken bones than most species accumulate in their entire lives. This is a medical crisis." "But they're healed," Jiho protested. "Most of them happened years ago, back on Earth. They're not even injuries anymore, they're just old breaks that fix themselves." Commander Thelcross's eyes narrowed. Explain. Every single one. I want to know how each fracture occurred. Jiho sighed and pointed at the holographic ribs. Okay, fine. Those 3 ribs, 2 of them happened when I was in university playing rugby. That's a contact sport. You run around and tackle each other. It's fun. 1 rib broke during a game, another broke during practice a year later. They healed in about 6 weeks each. Dr. Velness made a choking sound. You continued playing this sport after breaking your ribs? Well, yeah, Gio said. I sat out for the healing period, then went back. The 3rd rib happened last year when I was rock climbing. I fell about 15 feet and landed wrong. That one hurt pretty bad, I'll admit. Rock climbing, Commander Thelcross repeated. You climb rocks. For recreation. It's a hobby, Jiho said defensively. Lots of humans do it. Bora covered her face with her hands. She was starting to understand where this was going. Continue, the commander said. Jiho pointed to his spine. The compression fractures in my vertebrae happened from weightlifting. I was doing deadlifts at the gym, and my form was bad when I first started. Put too much pressure on my lower back. But I fixed my form, did some physical therapy, and now it's fine. You damaged your spine, Dr. Velness said slowly. At a location where you exercise. The gym, yeah, Jiho said. It's where we build muscle and strength. Sometimes you hurt yourself if you're not careful. Takmir had stopped taking notes. He was just staring at Jiho with his mouth parts hanging open. The collarbone, Commander Thelcross prompted. Motorcycle accident when I was 19, Jiho said. Got hit by a car. I was lucky, just broke the collarbone and got some road rash. Healed up in about 8 weeks. You were hit by a vehicle, the commander said. And you consider this lucky? Could have been worse, Jiho shrugged. Could have hit my head. Lieutenant Bora finally spoke up. Commander, if I may, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding here about human physiology and culture. I certainly hope so, Dr. Velness said. Because what I am hearing suggests humans deliberately participate in activities that cause severe bodily harm. Well, Bora said carefully. Yes and no. Jiho, tell them about the arm fractures. Jiho looked sheepish. Right. So 3 months ago I was doing maintenance on one of the outer ring sections. I was up on a ladder, maybe 10 feet high, and I lost my balance. Fell and landed on my left arm. Felt the snap, knew it was broken. And you reported this to medical? Commander Thelcross asked. No, Jiho admitted. I wrapped it up, took some painkillers from my personal supply and finished my shift. It was just a hairline fracture. Hurt for a couple weeks, then felt fine. Dr. Velness's mandibles began clicking rapidly again. You broke your arm on duty and did not file an injury report. You did not seek medical treatment. You continued working. It was healing fine on its own, Jiho said. Human bones are pretty good at that. They remodel themselves, get stronger where they broke. It's natural. This is not natural, Dr. Velness insisted. This is insane. Lieutenant Bora stepped forward. Commander Dr. Velness, with respect, what Jiho is describing is actually normal for humans. Our species evolved on a high-gravity world with dangerous predators. We developed very resilient skeletal systems. Our bones can break and heal multiple times throughout our lives. But the pain, Takmir said, speaking for the first time, the pain of a fracture is excruciating. How can anyone function through that? Jiho and Bora looked at each other. Bora spoke first. Humans have high pain tolerance. We can function through injuries that would disable most species. It's not that we don't feel pain. We just have the ability to push through it when necessary. Or when unnecessary, Jiho added. I mean, I probably should have reported the ladder fall. That one's on me. Commander Thelcross began pacing. Let me understand this correctly. Humans regularly participate in activities that cause fractures. Contact sports, climbing, operating vehicles, lifting heavy weights. When injuries occur, you simply wait for them to heal and then continue the same activities. Pretty much, Jiho said. I mean, we try to be safe. We wear protective gear, follow safety protocols. But accidents happen. It's part of life. This is not part of life for any other species on this station, the commander said. A Quillrathi with a single fracture would be hospitalized for weeks. A Shental would shatter completely. Even my own species would require extensive medical intervention and months of recovery. Dr. Velness pulled up additional data on her console. I have been reviewing human medical databases since this morning. Do you know what I found? Entire medical specialties devoted to treating sports injuries. Hospitals full of humans recovering from recreational accidents. Children breaking bones during normal play and growth. Children? Takmir said weakly. Your young break bones regularly. Kids heal even faster than adults, Jiho said. I broke my arm twice before I was 12. Once falling out of a tree, once playing soccer. Both times I was back to normal in a few weeks. The room fell silent. Commander Thelcross had stopped pacing. Dr. Velness's forearms hung limply at her sides. Even Lieutenant Bora looked uncomfortable under their stares. Finally, Dr. Velness spoke. Are all humans like this? Or is Corporal Park unusual? Bora cleared her throat. Well, I've had my share of injuries, too. Torn ligament in my knee from soccer when I was 16. Broke my wrist snowboarding in my 20s. Concussion from a car accident 5 years ago. I've been cleared for active duty for years. You also have multiple severe injuries, Dr. Velness said faintly. I wouldn't call them severe, Bora said. They healed. I recovered. I moved on. Commander Thelcross turned to his datapad, typing quickly. I am accessing the medical files of all humans currently stationed on Harmony 7. There are 43 humans among our crew of 3,000. He went quiet, reading. The silence stretched. When he looked up, his yellow eyes were wide with something that might have been shock. According to these files, 38 of the 43 humans have had at least one bone fracture at some point in their lives. The average is 4 fractures per human. Several have more than 10. He looked directly at Jiho. You are not unusual, Corporal. You are normal for your species. Jiho spread his hands. That's what I've been trying to tell you. Dr. Velness sat down heavily in her chair, all forearms resting on her console. This changes everything. Our entire understanding of human durability, human pain tolerance, human safety requirements. We have been treating you as if you were as fragile as other species. We're not fragile, Bora said. We're just built different. Commander Thelcross looked troubled. If humans can sustain and recover from such damage routinely, what would it actually take to seriously injure one of you? The question hung in the air unanswered. Jiho thought about it but couldn't come up with a good response. He'd never really considered it before. I think, Dr. Velness said quietly, we need to learn much more about human physiology, for everyone's safety. The medical bay conference room was packed 3 days later. Dr. Velness had called an emergency symposium, inviting representatives from every major species on Station Harmony 7. Word had spread quickly about the human skeleton incident, and everyone wanted answers. Jiho sat at the front of the room next to Lieutenant Bora, feeling like an exhibit at a museum. The amphitheater-style seating was filled with aliens of every description. Quilrathi medical staff occupied the front rows, their mandibles clicking with interest. Behind them sat a group of Shental, their crystalline bodies refracting the room's light into rainbow patterns. In the back, large water-filled tanks held 3 Nerida, aquatic beings who observed through their transparent viewing ports. Dr. Velness stood at the podium, her forearms moving across holographic displays. Thank you all for coming. 3 days ago, we discovered something remarkable about human physiology that has significant implications for how we interact with and care for our human colleagues. She brought up the now famous image of Jiho's skeleton, the red fracture markers glowing against the blue bone structure. A murmur ran through the crowd. This is Corporal Park Jiho, Dr. Velness continued, a maintenance engineer who has served on this station for 8 months with an exemplary record. These markers indicate 17 separate bone fractures. My initial assessment was that he had suffered catastrophic trauma and required immediate emergency intervention. One of the Shental in the audience raised a crystalline appendage. Her name was Prisma, and she worked in the engineering division with Jiho. Doctor, a single impact to my body could shatter me completely. How is this human still functioning? That is exactly what we are here to discuss, Dr. Velness said. She gestured to Jiho. Corporal Park, would you explain to everyone how you sustained these injuries? Jiho stood up, suddenly feeling nervous in front of so many eyes, stalks, and sensors. Hi everyone. So yeah, these fractures happened over about 10 years. Most of them were from sports and hobbies back on Earth. Sports? Asked a Thoraxian in the front row. What kind of combat sports does your military require? Oh no, Jiho said quickly. I'm not talking about military training. These were recreational activities, things I did for fun. The room went completely silent. Fun, Prisma repeated, her voice like wind chimes. You broke bones for entertainment? Not on purpose, Jiho said. But yeah, accidents happen when you play contact sports, rugby, soccer, that kind of thing, or when you do adventure activities like rock climbing or skateboarding. A young Quilrathi intern named Vesnil stood up, his voice confused. But if these activities cause fractures, why do humans participate in them? Are you a warrior species? Is this combat training in disguise? Jiho actually laughed. No, we're not warriors. Well, some humans are, but most of us aren't. We do these things because they're exciting. They make us feel alive. The risk is part of the appeal. The risk of breaking bones is appealing? Vesnil sat down slowly, looking disturbed. Lieutenant Bora stood up to help explain. Let me give you some context. On Earth, humans engage in dozens of activities that other species would consider suicidally dangerous. We jump out of aircraft with parachutes for fun. We strap boards to our feet and slide down mountains covered in frozen water. We climb sheer rock faces hundreds of feet high. We invented something called parkour, where we run through cities jumping between buildings. Why? Asked one of the narrator through her translation speaker. What evolutionary purpose does this serve? No purpose, Bora admitted. Pure recreation. Humans get bored easily, and we like challenges. We like testing our limits. Dr. Velness pulled up new data on her display. I have spent the last 3 days studying human medical records and cultural databases. What I found was shocking. Human hospitals have entire wings dedicated to sports medicine. Every year on Earth, millions of humans sustain injuries from recreational activities. Broken bones, torn ligaments, concussions, dislocations. She pulled up statistics that made the audience gasp. In human skiing accidents alone, approximately 100,000 bone fractures occur annually. In a sport called skateboarding, 70,000 fractures per year. These are only 2 examples among hundreds of dangerous activities humans regularly participate in. And they heal from these injuries? Asked a Thoraxian scientist. Repeatedly? That's what really fascinates me, Dr. Velness said. Human bones are constantly remodeling themselves. When a fracture occurs, the bone doesn't just repair the damage. It reinforces the breakpoint, making it stronger than before. Humans have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. For their bones, this is literally true. She gestured to Jiho. Corporal Park's bones have broken and healed so many times that in some places they are significantly denser than normal human bone. His fractures have made his skeleton more durable. Jiho hadn't known that. He looked at his hands, trying to imagine his bones getting stronger from all those breaks. It was a weird thought. Takmir, the junior physician, stood up. But what about the pain? I have studied human neurology. Your pain receptors are extremely sensitive. How do you function through fracture pain? This was something Jiho could answer. We feel it, trust me. Broken ribs hurt like crazy. But humans have this ability to sort of push pain to the background when we need to. We can focus on what needs to be done instead of how much it hurts. It's not that we're immune to pain, we just don't let it stop us. But why not? Vesnil asked. Why push through pain instead of resting and healing? Bora fielded this one. Because in human evolutionary history, stopping meant dying. Our ancestors couldn't afford to rest every time they got hurt. If a predator was chasing you, you ran even if your leg was hurt. If your tribe needed food, you hunted even if you had injuries. The humans who could keep going despite pain were the ones who survived long enough to have children. She paused, looking around the room. That's still part of our culture today. We admire toughness. We respect people who can endure hardship. We have phrases like tough it out and walk it off and no pain, no gain. We're taught from childhood that pain is temporary and weakness is shameful. That sounds horrible, Prisma said quietly. Sometimes it is, Bora admitted. Sometimes, humans push themselves too far and cause permanent damage. But mostly it's just who we are. We're stubborn. We don't like admitting defeat even to our own bodies. Dr. Velness pulled up images of human children playing. I also discovered that human younglings regularly break bones during normal development. Falls from playground equipment, sports injuries, accidents during play. This is considered normal and expected. Your children break bones regularly. Takmir sounded horrified. How do they survive to adulthood? Kids heal even faster than adults, Jiho said. Plus, childhood fractures are usually not that serious. I broke my arm twice before I was 12. I was back to playing within weeks both times. A Shental in the back spoke up. This seems impossibly dangerous. How has your species not gone extinct? Bora smiled. Because we're really, really hard to kill. Earth is a high-gravity world with extreme weather and large predators. Early humans had to deal with everything from lions to bears to hostile climate conditions. We evolved to be tough enough to handle it. Strong bones that can break and heal. High pain tolerance. Fast recovery times. Stubbornness to keep going when injured. And you brought all of this into space with you, Commander Thelcross said from his seat in the front row. He'd been quiet until now, just observing. Which means our safety protocols designed for species like the Quillrathi and Shental are insufficient for humans. Dr. Velness nodded. That is my concern. We have been treating humans as if they have the same physical limitations as other species. But Corporal Park fell from a ladder 3 months ago, fractured his arm and continued working without medical care. He healed naturally, with no intervention. In my defense, Jiho said, I really should have reported that one. The point stands, Dr. Velness said. If a Quillrathi had fallen from that ladder, we would be discussing a funeral, not a seminar. But the human walked away with minor injuries. Vesnil raised his hand again. So what do we do with this information? How do we adjust to working alongside humans? Commander Thelcross stood up. That is what we need to determine. We need to understand human capabilities so we can work with them effectively. We also need to ensure humans aren't taking unnecessary risks simply because they can survive them. He looked directly at Jiho. Just because you can work with a broken arm doesn't mean you should. Yeah, I get that now, Jiho said sheepishly. Dr. Velness has made it very clear that I need to start filing injury reports. All humans on this station need to understand that, Bora added. We're used to handling minor injuries ourselves. But we're not on Earth anymore. We're part of a galactic community, and they need to know when we're hurt so they can understand our limitations. Or lack thereof, muttered Prisma. Dr. Velness began wrapping up the presentation. Moving forward, I will be working with human medical staff to develop new protocols. We need to understand what actually constitutes a serious injury for humans versus what they consider minor. We need to adjust our emergency response procedures. And we need to educate all species on this station about human durability. She paused, her mandibles clicking thoughtfully. I have been a physician for 30 years. I have treated hundreds of species. But humans are unique. You are simultaneously fragile and unbreakable. You can be damaged easily, but you refuse to stay broken. It's remarkable. Jiho felt his face flush. We're just doing what we evolved to do. Perhaps, Dr. Velness said. But from our perspective, what you evolved to do is extraordinary. The meeting ended with dozens of questions from the audience. Jiho spent the next hour explaining human recreational activities to bewildered aliens who couldn't understand why anyone would voluntarily jump off a cliff with only a parachute to save them. As they finally left the conference room, Bora clapped Jiho on the shoulder. You did good in there. Now maybe they'll understand why humans are the way we are. I hope so, Jiho said. Though I'm not sure they'll ever really get it. How do you explain the joy of extreme sports to someone who shatters when they fall? Bora laughed. You can't. You just have to show them that we're built different, and hope they learn to appreciate it. 2 weeks after the symposium, Jiho was back to his normal routine. The station had settled down, though he still got curious looks from alien crew members. Some of them had started calling him the Unbreakable Human, which he found both funny and embarrassing. He was working in Section 17 of the Outer Ring with his friend Lee. Minho was another human engineer, slightly older than Jiho and a bit more cautious. Where Jiho would take risks, Minho preferred to follow safety protocols to the letter. Hand me the plasma spanner, Minho said, his upper body buried in an access panel. Jiho passed him the tool from their floating equipment cart. They were performing routine maintenance on the coolant distribution system, checking for wear and tear on pipes that carried supercooled liquid through the station's outer sections. "How's the pressure reading?" Jiho asked, checking his datapad. "Normal. Everything looks good here," Minho replied, his voice muffled. "Just 2 more panels and we're done for the day." The section they were working in was one of the older parts of the station, scheduled for upgrades next quarter. It was dimly lit, with exposed pipes and cables running along the walls. Not the prettiest part of Harmony 7, but functional. Takmir, the young Quilrathi physician, was also in the section. He was doing rounds checking on various crew members. After the symposium, he'd become fascinated with humans and had volunteered to shadow the human engineering teams to learn more about their work habits. "Corporal Park," Takmir called out, approaching with a medical scanner in 2 of his hands.
"How are you feeling today?"
"Any pain or discomfort?" "I'm good, Doc," Jiho said with a grin. "No new fractures to report." "Excellent. And you, Engineer Lee?" "Never better," Minho said, emerging from the access panel. "All finished with this section." 2 Shental engineers floated nearby, working on a separate system. Their names were Crystalis and Iris, and their transparent crystalline bodies sparkled in the dim light. They communicated with each other through pulses of colored light that flashed through their forms, though they wore translation devices for speaking with other species. "Everything is functioning properly here," Crystalis chimed, her voice like bells. "We should complete this maintenance cycle ahead of schedule." That's when the warning klaxon started blaring. Red emergency lights flashed throughout the section. Jiho's datapad lit up with urgent alerts. Before anyone could react, there was a sound like a gunshot, and one of the main coolant pipes burst. Supercooled liquid sprayed across the section, and toxic gas began venting from the damaged pipe. Emergency bulkheads started closing automatically, sealing Section 17 from the rest of the station to prevent contamination. "Everyone move," Minho shouted. "Get to the safe room." But it was already too late. The last bulkhead slammed shut with a heavy thud. They were trapped. The temperature in the section began dropping immediately. The coolant wasn't just cold, it was toxic to most species. Jiho could feel his lungs burning as he breathed, and frost was forming on the walls. Takmir stumbled, his body already reacting badly to the cold. Quilrathi were from a warm world and had no tolerance for these temperatures. Crystalis and Iris had frozen in place, their crystalline bodies becoming rigid. "If they move now, they could shatter." "Minho," Jiho called out, running to his friend. "We need to get everyone to Auxiliary Control Room C. It's got independent life support." Minho was already pulling up station schematics on his datapad, his breath visible in the rapidly cooling air. "That's 3 sections away. We'd have to go through the damaged corridors. Do we have a choice?" Jiho looked at the sealed bulkheads. Through the small viewport, he could see rescue teams assembling on the other side. But emergency protocols meant they couldn't open the doors for at least 40 minutes. Standard procedure to prevent station-wide contamination. They didn't have 40 minutes. Takmir was already showing signs of hypothermia, his movements becoming sluggish. The 2 Shental couldn't move at all without risking catastrophic damage to their bodies. "Emergency supply locker," Minho said, pointing to a wall panel. They rushed over and yanked it open. Inside were thermal suits, breathing masks, and emergency tools. But when they pulled out the suits, they found them torn and damaged, likely from the same structural failure that had burst the pipe. "Great," Jiho muttered. "Okay, new plan. We carry them." "Carry them?" Minho stared at him. "Jiho, Takmir has to weigh at least 200 pounds, and the Shental will shatter if we handle them wrong." "Then we handle them right," Jiho said firmly. He grabbed 2 of the damaged thermal suits and tore them into strips, creating makeshift padding. "We wrap the Shental in this padding, one of us carries each of them. You take Takmir. I'll lead. We move fast but careful." Minho looked like he wanted to argue, but he just nodded. There was no other option. Jiho ran to Crystalis first. "I'm going to pick you up," he said. "I'll be gentle, I promise." He carefully wrapped the padding around her crystalline body, then lifted her. She was surprisingly light, maybe 80 pounds. He could feel her vibrating with fear. Minho did the same with Iris, while Jiho helped Takmir climb onto Minho's back. The Quilrathi was barely conscious now, his mandibles clicking weakly. "Stay with us, Doc," Minho said. "We're getting you out of here." They started moving. Jiho led the way with Crystalis cradled in his arms, checking his datapad for the safest route. The corridors were a nightmare. Exposed wiring sparked where the structural damage had spread. Sharp metal debris littered the floor. The toxic gas formed visible clouds in the freezing air. Jiho's arms burned from holding Crystallis, but he didn't dare adjust his grip. One wrong move and she'd shatter. His lungs felt like they were on fire from the toxic atmosphere, and he could feel frost forming on his hair and eyebrows. Jiho, left at the next junction, Minho called from behind, his voice strained from carrying Takmir's weight. They made the turn, and Jiho's foot slipped on frost-covered floor. He stumbled but managed to keep his balance, protecting Crystallis from impact. His ankle twisted painfully. Almost certainly a sprain, maybe worse. He kept moving. In the next corridor, they had to climb over a collapsed support beam. Jiho went first, carefully stepping over the debris while holding Crystallis stable. A piece of sharp metal caught his leg, tearing through his uniform and cutting deep into his calf. He felt the warm blood running down into his boot. Kept moving. Almost there, he gasped. Just one more section. Minho was struggling now, too. Takmir's weight was taking its toll, and the cold was affecting both humans. But Minho pushed forward, his face set in determination. They entered the final corridor, and Jiho saw the auxiliary control room door ahead. 20 feet, 15, 10. That's when another pipe burst right next to them. Scalding steam mixed with the freezing air, creating a deadly fog. Jiho felt the heat sear his right arm and shoulder, but he turned his body to shield Crystallis from the worst of it. Go, 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 he shouted. They practically fell through the control room door. Minho slammed it shut behind them and activated the independent life support. Clean air began flowing immediately, and the temperature started rising to normal levels. Jiho gently set Crystallis down on a padded bench. Minho lowered Takmir to the floor, then carefully placed Iris beside her companion. Is everyone okay? Jiho asked, checking on each of them. The Shental were rigid but unbroken. Takmir was breathing, his body temperature slowly returning to normal in the warmer environment. We survived, Crystallis chimed weakly. You carried us through that. You saved us. We're not out yet, Minho said, looking at the control room displays. Life support is stable, but we're still locked in until rescue teams clear the contamination. Jiho nodded, then realized the room was spinning. He looked down at himself. His leg was bleeding badly from the metal cut. His arm and shoulder were blistered from the steam. His ankle was swollen. He could feel at least 2 of his ribs grinding in a way that probably meant they were cracked. Minho, he said, his voice sounding distant. I think I might have overdone it a little. The last thing he saw before he collapsed was Minho's panicked face and Takmir trying to stand up to help. Through the control room window, rescue teams were finally approaching. Jiho hoped they'd hurry. He was really tired. Then everything went black. The medical bay was quiet except for the steady beeping of monitors. Dr. Velness stood over Jiho's unconscious form, her forearms moving rapidly between different instruments and displays. Her medical team worked around her, their movements efficient and practiced. Vital signs are stabilizing, Takmir reported from his own medical bed nearby. He'd recovered quickly once his body temperature had normalized, and he'd insisted on helping, despite Dr. Velness's protests. The human's healing response is already engaging. Dr. Velness studied the scans in front of her. The damage was extensive. Punctured lung, where a cracked rib had shifted during the rescue. Severe lacerations on the leg. Chemical burns to the respiratory system from the toxic gas. Second-degree burns on his arm and shoulder. Hypothermia. New fractures to 2 fingers and a cracked pelvis from where he'd fallen in the control room. By any reasonable medical standard, Jiho should be in critical condition for weeks, yet his body was already beginning to repair itself. His white blood cell count had spiked, fighting off multiple potential infections simultaneously. His bone tissue was already starting to remodel around the new fractures. His baseline vitals, even in crisis, would be considered peak health for most species. Impossible, she murmured. Not for the first time. How does this species survive? They're stubborn, came a voice from the doorway. Lieutenant Bora walked in, still wearing her work uniform. She'd been supervising the rescue operation. How is he? He will live, Dr. Velness said. Though by rights he should not. The injuries he sustained while evacuating the others, combined with his pre-existing damage, should have killed him. Yet his body simply refuses to give up. Across the room, Minho sat on another medical bed. He'd been treated and released, suffering only minor frostbite and exhaustion. Next to him, Crystalis and Iris rested in specialized cradles, their crystalline bodies slowly returning to their normal flexibility. "He saved us," Crystalis said, her voice chiming softly. "Both humans did. They carried us through conditions that should have killed them." Dr. Wellness moved to check on the Shental. "And you are unharmed? No fractures or damage?" "Only because of the padding they created and how carefully they carried us," Iris replied. "Any impact would have shattered us, but they protected us even while they were being injured themselves." "That's what humans do," Bora said quietly. "When there's a crisis, we push through whatever pain or damage we're experiencing to protect others. It's instinct." Dr. Wellness returned to Jiho's bedside. "He has 19 healed fractures now, soon to be 21 once these new ones heal." She paused, her mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "I have spent the last 3 weeks studying human physiology. I thought I understood. But seeing this, experiencing it directly, I realize I had only scratched the surface." The door opened again and Commander Thelcross entered with 3 other station officials. "Status report? All 5 individuals who were trapped in Section 17 are alive," Dr. Wellness said. "The 3 alien crew members are recovering well. Engineer Lee Minho has been treated and released. Corporal Park Jiho is in serious but stable condition." "How long until he recovers?" the commander asked. Dr. Wellness checked her datapad. "Based on human healing rates, he should regain consciousness within 12 hours. He'll be mobile within 3 days. Full recovery will take approximately 6 weeks." The commander's eyes widened. 3 days? With those injuries? "Human healing is exponentially faster than most species," Dr. Wellness explained. "Their bodies prioritize survival and rapid recovery. It's extraordinary." Commander Thelcross approached Jiho's bed looking down at the unconscious engineer. The rescue teams reported that the corridors Park and Lee traveled through were nearly impassable. Toxic gas, extreme cold, structural damage, exposed wiring. Most species would have died within minutes. Yet they carried 3 vulnerable crew members through all of that. And sustained massive injuries doing it. Takmir added. "I was on Corporal Park's back for part of the journey. I felt him stumble multiple times, heard him gasping for breath. But he never stopped. Never slowed down. He just kept moving forward. Because stopping would have meant we all died," Minho said from his bed. "That's how Jiho thinks, how a lot of humans think. The mission is what matters. You deal with your own damage later." Bora crossed her arms. "It's not always healthy. Sometimes humans push themselves too far because we can't accept limitations. But in this case, that stubbornness saved lives." Dr. Wellness was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice thoughtful. "When I first saw Corporal Park's skeleton 3 weeks ago, I believed I was looking at proof of how fragile humans were. 17 fractures seemed like evidence that your species was constantly being broken by the universe around you." She gestured to the medical monitors showing Jiho's steady recovery. "I was wrong. Those fractures were not proof of fragility. They were proof of resilience. Proof that humans break and then refuse to stay broken. You sustain damage that would permanently disable or kill other species, and you simply heal and continue forward." "It's not that special," Minho said. "It's just how we're built." "But it is special," Crystalis chimed. "My people cannot heal from fractures. If I break, I am broken forever. The same is true for many species here. But humans can be damaged again and again, and each time you repair yourselves, you are simultaneously the most fragile and most durable species I have encountered." The room fell silent. The only sounds were the medical monitors and Jiho's steady breathing. 3 days later, Jiho woke up to find his room filled with flowers and gifts from various crew members. His ribs were wrapped, his arm was in a brace, and he felt like he'd been hit by a transport shuttle, but he was alive. Dr. Wellness was there within minutes of his waking. "How do you feel?" "Like I got into a fight with a coolant pipe and lost," Jiho said, his voice hoarse. "But I'm okay. How are the others?" "Takmir, Crystalis, Iris. All recovered," Dr. Wellness assured him. "Thanks to you and Engineer Lee, you saved their lives." "Minho did most of the work," Jiho protested. "I just led the way." "You carried Crystalis through lethal conditions while sustaining injuries that would have killed most species," Dr. Wellness said firmly. "You protected her with your own body when the steam pipe burst." "Do not diminish what you did." Jiho looked embarrassed. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Dr. Wellness said. "You did what a human would do. And that made all the difference." 2 weeks later, Station Commander Thelcross held a formal ceremony in the main plaza. Despite Dr. Velness's protests, Jiho insisted on attending even if he had to use a wheelchair. His pelvis was still healing. The plaza was packed with crew members from every species. Jiho and Minho were presented with the Galactic Coalition's Medal of Valor, a rare honor usually reserved for military personnel. Takmir spoke on behalf of the rescued crew members. These humans could have escaped to safety alone. Instead, they chose to carry us through deadly conditions. They sustained terrible injuries protecting us. Crystalis and Iris would have shattered. I would have frozen. But we are alive because two humans decided our lives were worth more than their own safety. The crowd erupted in applause. Jiho felt his face burning with embarrassment. He'd never been comfortable with attention. After the ceremony, Dr. Velness approached him. I have completed my research paper on human durability, she said. I will be presenting it to the Galactic Medical Council next month. What did you conclude? Jiho asked. Dr. Velness's mandibles clicked, and what Jiho had learned was her version of a smile. That human beings evolved on a world that tried to kill them at every turn. You developed not just the ability to heal, but the determination to keep going despite damage. Those 19 healed fractures in your skeleton are not weaknesses. They are proof that humans can break and still refuse to stay broken. We're pretty good at the whole getting back up thing, Jiho agreed. It's kind of our specialty. Indeed, Dr. Velness said. And I believe the rest of the galaxy needs to understand that. Humans are not fragile. You are not weak. You are a species that has learned to turn damage into strength. Every fracture that heals makes you more resilient. Every injury you recover from proves that breaking does not mean defeated. Jiho looked down at his wheelchair, at his healing body. So all these injuries were worth studying? Every single one, Dr. Velness said. They taught us what humanity truly is. Not a species that never breaks, but a species that never stays broken. 6 weeks later, Jiho was back on full duty. His new fractures had healed, bringing his lifetime total to 21. Dr. Velness had made him promise to actually report injuries from now on, and he'd agreed. Mostly. He was working with Minho again back in the maintenance sections. They were installing new safety systems, upgraded after the incident. Hey Jiho, Minho said as they worked. Did you learn anything from almost dying? Jiho paused, considering the question. Yeah, actually. Next time something hurts, I should probably mention it to someone. Minho laughed. That's the lesson you took from this? Well, that and maybe I should start filing injury reports, Jiho added. Dr. Velness gets really intense about that. Anything else? Jiho thought about the ceremony, about Takmir's speech, about Dr. Velness's research. He thought about how the other species on the station looked at humans now, with a mixture of respect and bewilderment. I learned that breaking doesn't make you weak, he said finally. It's what you do after you break that matters. Minho nodded. That's very profound. Very human. Thanks, Jiho said. Now hand me that plasma spanner. We've got work to do. They returned to their tasks, two humans on an alien station, carrying their histories of fractures and repairs like badges of honor. Proof that humanity's greatest strength was not that they never broke. It was that breaking never stopped them.